Welcome to the AJ Brown Show, where we talk about all things investing, options trading, and the like. Now here's your host, AJ, whose primary mission in life is to help you become a better investor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the AJ Brown Show. And we are so grateful today to have our guide, our leader here to tell us what to do with these wild world events. AJ, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Big news overnight, early evening, at least evening for me last night, was the attack. I guess I would call it a Israel attacked Iran. I don't know if you were able to see any of the clips, but those look like some pretty precise missile attacks on some high level generals. At least that's what I'm reading. What's your take? What's your initial take? From the news that you're seeing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at it from a market perspective. And from the market perspective, man, at first, during amateur hour, you always get that reaction. Remember, the market is cut up in the first hour. We call it amateur hour. It's where people wake up and all the retail traders react to whatever they've heard about in the morning. So amateur hour saw just a huge flight to safety, money coming out of stock market into bonds, into gold, into oil. Oil has popped up on fears, but already now that we're into the morning session, we're seeing moderation in that. So maybe this was an initial overreaction, and now there's some clearing out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and we probably won't have an answer till the end of the day, knowing our president and what he
Mhm.
may come out and say. Whether I think the big question is, what is the U.S. going to do? Because I believe Iran has already come out and said that, hey, we're going to declare war on you and we're going to retaliate. So not sure what to make of that. But
I
you're
mean,
right.
there's news that they sent over like 100 drones towards Israel, but I think they've already been neutralized. So I'm not sure either. What's going to happen? I don't know.
Well, let's go ahead and I don't have your chart up. If you would.
No, I gotta tell you that maybe you can go through some of your stuff while I work on a couple of things that are happening. This is a live show, and I gotta say something's happening with my screens here. So I'm gonna work on that for a second. You want to bring up something on your side really quick?
Well, the only thing I'm really seeing is some of these images coming out of Iran. Maybe to just find one that to kind of here's a good one of just like the severity of what is actually taking place. I don't know what let me see if I can blow this up here. But I imagine that if we saw something like this in the US with just uh, red flares flying into one of our major cities, I believe we would be very concerned and scrambling. But in the Middle East, maybe they're used to this type of stuff. But very shocking, all in all. Um, did move the markets down about, I don't know, 1.5% maybe overnight into the morning. And like you said, starting today, we're bouncing off of those lows. Let's take a quick look at the VIX. The VIX is up 9%. Was up as high as, I believe I saw it as high as like 15, 16, sitting at this $19 threshold. Um, so yeah, I mean, the markets are rebounding off of these lows, but your rainbow charts are always a little bit cleaner than
Yep,
anything that I'm
I'm
looking.
getting them. I'm getting it pulled up now.
Um,
I apologize for that, but now I'm back up, so I'm going to share my screen.
and this was on the back news of the LA riots. I mean, that was kind of the precursor for our background
Yeah,
selection for
you
the
and
week.
I were completely we were completely thinking, as we were planning this show, how to talk about the riots, how to talk about, Newsom up against Trump, how to talk about, Marines up against local communities. And then this morning we had to change gears for this whole Israel bombing Iran and taking out three of their people and also taking out nuclear enrichment facilities and things like that. Okay, I've got my chart up. So, yeah, you can see, let's zoom in a little bit. You can see as we pull back this morning on gapping down news, let's go to, say, a 3-month chart, and maybe we'll zoom in even further. Yeah, let's zoom in even further. You can see on this chart right here, we have a doji bar, which means we were starting out way down here. So I'm going to get rid of my rainbow really quick because I think what the viewers would see better is this. So, we closed pretty much high. We've been hanging out. Let's give people a little bit of, so you can see my level of ascending.
Not sure where AJ popped off. Let me see if I can pop him out and pop him back in. No, looks like we've got AJ on a current freeze. Might need to get him to pop back in. Sit tight, folks. All right, folks. Well, just wanted to give everyone a quick reminder that if you want to follow along with the trading trainer community and a lot of the things that AJ is doing behind the scenes, head on over to our Quicks Links page. This will now be in the chat. This has got a bunch of goodies in here. We've got AJ's free indicators. We've got the links to the socials. We've got the registering for the workshop. We've got his coaching. It looks like we do have AJ back. But in the meantime, I do want to give everybody access to the quick links here so that you guys could follow along behind the scenes. But it looks like we've got AJ back now. AJ, we lost you there for a second, but I think you're good to go now.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing ever.
The drones, the drones of
I have no idea. Maybe it's my location. So I wanted to point out this whole doji bar here. And so I think we were hinting at the fact that this all might be moderating at this point.
we still need to get the chart up, which still not up there.
Nice.
But on that topic, I did want to just bring up one of our videos from last week, and that was we were looking for like a catalyst for the market to break up or down, and you had even mentioned that it could be the littlest thing. Lo and behold,
Not so little.
potential international war is not so little, and definitely could be that catalyst.
My favorite, can I just say really quick? My favorite is how, spokesmen for the US government are saying that we had no involvement, but at the same time, Trump is on his social media. And remember, we're now watching his social media, and he's like, I told Iran that they should make a nuclear deal. It's day 61. And it's kind of like, wait, we just got through saying that we had nothing to do with this. And now you're basically saying, hey, I told you so, that, this is happening and I authorized this and blah, 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 blah. So that just makes me laugh a little bit.
Well, it's funny because I think he was even more specific. He was like, "We have the best military and missiles, and Israel has access to all of them, but they can have more." And it's just like kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're not involved, but like, hey, we'll supply them.
Yeah, and we'll give them the go ahead to do this on this particular day since you let the time lapse go for the nuclear deal. Okay, so the gap down, this is a 15-minute chart. Gap down on open, amateur hour, right? 15 minutes the first hour, morning session bringing us back up. So, investors, just like as we've been seeing with the LA riots, investors are not even really paying attention to some of this stuff. Yes, we get caught up in the hype, and people are moving. There's a group of folks moving towards, this amount of safety. But in reality, the market movers who are in there with the big money, they're kind of like, this is a world skirmish. I'm more interested in inflation. I'm more interested in economic news than I am of these skirmishes that come and go. And so they're kind of already moderating the market as these amateurs have checked out for the day and have gone off to their day job. That's what I'm seeing.
Is that possible? I find that very hard to believe that the big money would, unless, and this is what I was thinking when I was seeing the market, unless it's like, hey, the American market is still the best stock market to be in, so maybe we should remove some of the international funds and go to the US.
There's also that, but we see that sip in the bonds, right? The 10-year treasury bond, especially today. I'm going to pull up my watch list here. The 10-year treasury bond compared to even just yesterday has spiked up. So, yes, there's been a huge amount of motion into the bonds here, and that is a typical safe haven. The other big safe haven, of course, is gold. If I pull up the price of gold over here, gold is at all-time highs. Let's pull it up. Gold. The CNBC site always is a little bit slow, isn't it? I think it's
Because they
got
hit you with
heavily
so many banners. They you gotta get all the
that
pop-up.
you got to get all the pop-ups. But yeah, look, gold is at $3,450 an ounce. If I pull it up into the last 3 months, you can see on this chart, we're just, we've been moderating a little bit and now pop just today in the last couple of, maybe the last 48 hours. Same thing with oil. Oil is super spiked, and that's both because oil can be seen as a place for security, but oil in this particular circumstance, we get a lot of, there's a lot of oil on the world market from Iran. Iran is known for their sweet crude. So, supply issues, anything that ever hits the Middle East. But with all that said, coming back to the equities market, we're seeing a lot of folks putting their money right back into equities. Look, we're already above today's open. So again, money's flowing back into equities. People are kind of saying this is a done deal. Um, it's amazing how quickly traders look to the future versus looking at the past. Let's take a look really quick. I've been watching the VIX as well today. Um, and so, yeah, you'll notice on the VIX, we spiked up at open, but we're already moderating back down to the mean. I mean, that's a huge amount of movement for today, just back down, as you can see with this arrow. Maybe I've got my intraday chart up that we can look at on the VIX and just look at, yeah, see, people were worried. Remember, when the VIX is up, there's worry, and it's already coming right back down. I wouldn't be surprised if we're below our open. I wouldn't be surprised if we, by the end of the day, don't moderate right back down close. And Monday, Tuesday, 5 days would have gone by from this little thing. So I have a term for this, Sip. I call this a transient, which means very quick in time, external. So this has nothing to do with the normal market dynamics. Transient, external, stochastic, overcorrection, transient, external, stochastic shock. And what I always tell my investors is when you detect a transient, external, stochastic shock, just buckle up and, don't white knuckle it. Maybe turn off the trading screens for a couple hours, let it pass because it always does.
And however, in this case, it could be an ongoing situation, right? Where the, information, and if not the clips, because like you get a couple videos of some dramatic, bombings and whatnot, and I keep seeing World War III mentioned, and I don't can't imagine that being good for anybody.
Yeah, but at the same time, think of this whole thing with Ukraine and Russia. That's now going into what over the third year now. At first, we thought it was the end of the world. Russia was invading Ukraine. Everybody's going to get involved. It's going to be insanity. And then soon we normalize it like, oh, Ukraine just took out all of, a third of Russia's high end aircraft with drones that they've been planning on. And Russia's going to respond. And the market didn't even, miss a beat. So,
So I also just checked Bitcoin, which is up surprisingly. Like Bitcoin seems to have become like one of these safe havens. But looking at the S&P, what are
yeah.
you? How, I mean, I guess as an options trader, this is now becoming a good time to start to look for some more premium because
Mm,
the VIX has popped and we've got a little bit more worry, and that might help those short-sided positions
mhm.
be a little bit more, I don't know, valuable on the premium side.
Well, so let's talk about what really is going to move the markets. And it was actually happening in the beginning of this week. This was the trade talks with China, US and China. When it comes to companies and the stock market and all of that, our biggest partner in trade, uh, our biggest partners in trade here in the US is Mexico and Canada. But then it comes to China, and China brings in more stuff. Mexico and Canada brings us a lot of our, raw materials like oils and steels and things like that, as well as the whole auto industry. But Mexico has a lot of kind of our brute force manufacturing. We get a lot of our food from Mexico, but China has been our partner over the last 20 years, where technology companies like Apple, Hewlett Packard, any technology company, Oracle, they're all, they've over the last 20, 30 years have moved to China. And now there's this. So any sort of trade deal we get with China will move the markets more permanently, right? And, we had more trade talks on Monday and Tuesday, and on by Tuesday evening, we kind of were disappointed by the results. Nothing had really been reached. US is trying to solidify their rare earth play. China wants to get some of the technology that US has put the kibosh on. So, okay, we didn't get any sort of resolution to trying to uh, China US trade talks. The tariffs are still there. And then the last one is going to be what happens with this whole fiscal budget of the US. What are we going to be doing next year as far as spending? The whole Elon, Trump thing. Are we going to fund EV research? Are we going to, fund tax cuts? What is it that's going to happen? These are the things I feel like are really going to move the market. Let's take a look at technicals. You wanna take a look at technicals for a second?
Yeah, because you're spot on. It felt like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even though we got some inflation data, which I guess, was on the more positive
Positive
side,
side.
right? Everyone was like, well, what is the details of this meeting? Like, I guess it concluded with, hey, we're going to take this to Trump, and we're going to take this to the Chinese
Xi
leader, and who knows when they'll come back and say, yeah, we agree, we don't agree. Like, it could be spur of the moment, middle of the night, but it felt like that's what the market was just like, well, we're just going to keep waiting because it's going to work out. It's going to be a positive deal.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what the market wants to know about ongoing trade with China. So, yeah, let's look at the technicals. So, we're supposedly in this uptrend, although as we zoom out a little bit, we can see that, we're kind of just recovering from the pullback we had earlier this year. So, we haven't made any ground. And then this latest move, I'm going to bring us back to the more present here. Um, we're supposedly in this little bit of an uptrend, but this is what I keep pointing out to folks. And that is, we've got these moves that are up, right? And a lot of people are paying attention to these moves that are up. We're currently in one, although depending on what happens today, this could be the end of this current move. But and both of these moves are strong, right? If I put my little rainbow diagram on here, you can see that they both are in what we call the green. Boom. They're in the green. And so people are like, well, this is a really strong uptrend. But not every uptrend, I mean, a strong uptrends always have good, what we call contractions, right? Range contractions. And we haven't really gotten a good contraction since we've been in this latest trend. This one was really undecisive. It went right to the edge of the purple and the red zone. This one didn't even make it into any of the zones at all. And so when you don't have good range contractions, I don't care how good your range expansions are, the uptrend is in trouble. And when I take a look at the fact that over the last 3 weeks, we've been just hugging this line of ascending support, I am seeing that there's some real strong overhead pressure. That level of resistance that we established back in, the beginning of the year looks like it's holding. And so I see this as a macro sideways major choppy market. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to butt up against, and I said this last week, butt up against resistance at 6,000 and just oscillate for maybe the next year or two between 5,000 and 6,000.
And that wouldn't be in it. I guess interest rate policy could kind of weigh on that.
Interest rate policy, that whole budget discussion, trade and tariffs. I don't care what tries to distract us, whether it's riots in LA, whether it's a feud between Trump and Musk, the richest man in the world and the most powerful man in the world. I don't care if it's Ukraine blowing up Russia and Russia blowing up Ukraine. I don't care if it's Israel and Iran being in world war. What the investors want to know is what's going to happen with global trade, what's going to happen with the U.S. economy, inflation, and budget. That's it. That's what it boils down to. And until they know those answers, we're going to be sideways choppy. So we need to know about the strategies to trade sideways choppy markets. That's why I'm here, right? We've got an options trading strategy to fit anything, right? Whereas other investors are like, what do I do now? And do I always have to be watching the market so closely? We just put our strategies in place, SIP, and we can make money on this. But it's good to know where we're at.
Yeah, and on that topic, I just put the quick links into the chat one more time because in this market of uncertainty where we've got global wars and we've got uncertain trade deals, it seems as if options might be the best vertical to get into, because naturally when that tension rises, as a premium seller, you get more of what they call, what we've discussed, kind of that insurance policy, right? And
That's
so
what that's one of my favorite strategies. My favorite strategy is to sell the hedges to people that want those hedges. We make money on basically people wanting to buy insurance, insuring their positions in the stock market.
I have a question on that. So would the VIX be the indicator to, say, elevated tensions, right? Is that kind of what you would look at as a way? Okay, premiums should be a little bit more than average. And that's that, what, like the 18, 19 mark? So,
Right.
so in theory, anytime we're above that, your premium opportunities look a little bit more favorable.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something I had to tell my program participants as well. Yes, it's a little more favorable, but remember, my favorite strategy to trade, the one that I'm always talking about, is more of a time strategy rather than a implied volatility strategy. So it's more about the time passing by. But yes, when you add into it that there's a little bit more uncertainty in the market today than there was yesterday, it means any premiums we sell in the next few days, we're going to get, an incremental more of return on.
And so we'll dig through a couple of options, or names that we're looking at.
I got to
Um,
say one more thing, Sip. Can I say one more thing about this? So, even though, and again, I keep emphasizing what would really move the markets versus, these news headlines. And I don't get me wrong, I'm not diminishing what's going on around the world with geopolitical tensions. No means. But I'm talking from the perspective of the market, moving. I've got this line drawn on the VIX. I think everybody can see that. It's called the founded, unfounded fear threshold. And this is when you know when the proverbial poop is really hitting the fan. It's when the VIX goes above that founded, unfounded fear threshold. When it goes above $26, then the fear usually materializes into something that's real and long term, not just passing. And you can see we popped up, we opened today with a VIX at 2176. And we're already back down to $19.21, and it's not even the halfway mark of the trading day. So, investors, they've increased their insurance holding a little bit on their positions, but they're not in that founded, meaning that the fear is sustainable and there for a while. They're just like, there's a little bit going on over here. I'll hedge my positions more, but I got my eye on the ball.
and do the overnight moves have have an effect on any of this? Because it seems as if they react or overreact to some of these news events, and then when the day session opens, you see different flows.
hmm Yeah, of course, gapping overnight. And that's one thing that, and this is why, Sip, I really like the strategies that you and I employ with our options trading, is because we protect ourselves overnight. Some people who say that they're into options trading, when you delve down deeper, what they're doing is using options as leverage, as stock replacements. And that's kind of, you know, again, I don't want to pretend like I'm an elitist or anything, but that's one of the more basic option trading strategies, is just to basically be trading stocks, but with options on leverage, which, um, there's so many different ways to trade options. And if, options are not traded after hours. So if the stock movement is moving after hours and we open at a different price than we closed, the option market catches up almost instantaneous, because we've got some high frequency option traders as well as high frequency stock traders. And what that means is the little guy like me, if he's trading some of those, or if she or they, if they're trading some of those basic strategies, they could wind up, going to bed one night thinking everything's hunky dory, waking up the next morning with their pants on fire. And so I'm really an advocate of understanding options more than that and trading the strategies that actually protect against that rather than expose you to more risk. People really need to, think about it because these options were generated to hedge against risk. And the way that a lot of small investors use them is actually more risky. And that's why options get a bad name. You'll hear people say, oh, you trade options. Isn't that more risky? Actually, it depends on how you trade them.
Yeah, and the way that I explain it to my less sophisticated investing friends is, hey, you've got some long-term investments, you like some stocks. In times like this, when there's uncertainty and a little bit of shock, maybe you want to sell some premium against those stocks in case the market drops. At least you can make back a little bit of the difference. And then, in the long term, if you still believe in that name and
Right.
the economy and whatnot, you'll earn it back. That's the basic premium selling. But what you go over and what you teach in the course is variations of that, different rushes and crushes and all that jazz.
Sure.
So if you watching have been tuning in for some time, then you know this already. But for those of us or those of you that haven't, we're gonna dig into some ways to go about using these strategies, and hopefully finding a boring name that is kind of separated itself from some of this, stochastic shock,
Mhm.
because that's possible in a stock market.
Can I
But
tell you
before,
something, Sip? Last night at our, user we have a workshop every Thursday where our program participants come and they throw symbols at us that they'd like to see analyzed. And then we analyze them all and then we look at which one would be the best of the best to sell premium on. And then we go ahead and plan it out. We run through scenarios. It's kind of a fun, way of doing it. It's a very interactive workshop. The candidates, I mean, the program participants threw a candidate at us last night that after we spent 80 minutes on it. We looked at it every single way. And this thing is a pro. And it's been in the right pattern for 15 months, meaning over the last 15 months, we could be selling premium on it. We would be making a fortune on it. And it continues to go in that pattern. So, if anybody's interested in this type of trading where you find these candidates and you could put a good portion of your portfolio into it and you just let it run every month and it just pays you like anywhere from we saw in 1 month this would pay us 17-25%, something like that. um they should totally check out our program and join these like weekly workshops.
yeah, and the link to that is in the chat. And we're gonna take a quick break and come back. And
Let's do it.
is this the one that we're gonna be looking at? Is what you figured out?
No,
No,
no, I
okay,
leave that one for our program
yeah,
participants. We
no,
gotta keep a little
that's
bit of magic in there, but I do like the one this is actually one from a few weeks ago from our program, and it's, like, performing textbook, and I wanna share it with everybody out in the interwebs.
yeah, that's right. This is the freemium. If you want the premium picks,
Yeah,
you gotta
freemium
you
is a
gotta
good word.
join the program. The link is in the chat. Sit tight. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna go through AJ's pick of the week. We've got some speed round names. We are streaming live, so if anybody watching has a question specific to maybe what's going on today, drop it in the chat and we'll try and get to it if we have some time. So sit tight, folks.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
I get it. You're afraid of trading in the markets. Guess what? I've got your answer. I've got 4 strategies I'm going to give you along with the tools to make it super easy. I'm going right home, giving you the webinar. I need you to sign up below and meet me in a few minutes.
All right, all right, all right. Um, your pick of the week. I would imagine that this is as boring of a name as it gets, seeing as the sector in itself may be kind of, sluggish recently in the recent couple of months. But with that, you're looking at retailer Bath and Body Works, ticker symbol BBWI. What do you like
Yeah.
in this?
Oh, so first of all, I love the price that it's trading. It's nice, inexpensive. It's around $26.25 a share right now. I love the pattern that it's in, that it's got tested support at, 26.75. It's got tested resistance at about 32.75. So what it is investors are quite happy. This particular stock gives a dividend to investors. And so investors aren't necessarily, pushing on the company to change their stock price. That's called asset appreciation when they're being paid a dividend for only owning the stock. So this has a lot of reasons why it's going to continue to just oscillate between about $27 and about $32. It's right now at the bottom of the channel, which gives us as premium sellers a great opportunity to buy this stock. Or if we don't want to buy this stock, this has such good trading in the option chain. There is a substitute option where we could get the same kind of effect as buying the stock, and it'll act as our initial covering position to get into the premium selling business, but it's at a fraction of the cost and it gives us a little bit of leverage. That would be the Bath and Body Works March of 2026. I know I'm going out pretty far here, but I want to hold on to this back month option for a while. So Bath and Body Works, March 2026, $15 call. I could see buying that. I've got a signal. I received an end of day signal with my free indicator that anybody out there can download. I got that on June 9th, but I really haven't seen the follow through to that end of day signal. So I haven't yet pulled the trigger. But the minute I see the follow through, I'm either going to buy shares of this stock SIP, and I'll buy them in lots of 100 so I could sell option premium in the future, or I'll buy that substitute option at a fraction of the cost and it'll set me up. So if I'm long the stock or long this substitute call option, any price action moving up is going to be in my benefit. But the minute it stops moving up and I get my magenta arrow, which is that, peak, it means that it's kind of petered out for the time being, like it's done 2 or 3 times in the last 2 or 3 months. Once it does that, I sell the call premium. I buy the protective put. I'm collared. I'm protected. I don't have to worry about what's happening in the world, what's happening even on this stock, because it's just now a matter of time passing by to collect that 17-25%. And it looks like it's happening on a month to month basis. So if you're looking for an investment where you can make, double digit returns every month, Bath and Body Works should be on your radar. And we've got the end of day signal. We're just looking for follow through. If you're new to this, I would say paper trade this and see how it works out. Prove it to yourself.
And it looks like we just passed earnings recently,
Mhm.
so
Not
we've got
something to
that,
worry about.
yeah, in the rearview mirror for, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 months, it seems like. All right, well, that's what you're liking there. Bath and Body Works.
Boring as heck. That's what I
Boring
like.
as, and surprisingly, they're still in business, I guess. I
Yep.
I I can't think of one around me, but I would imagine some of the ladies are fans of the Bath and Body Works.
Yeah.
Definitely not me. So that's AJ's pick of the week. Ticker symbol BBI, I believe. BBI. Is that right?
BBWI.
Oh, BBWI. Yeah, sorry, my bad. All right, cool. Moving on, we've got a couple other names that the folks from around the world want to get your take on. This first one is new to me. I'm gonna have to do some research here. But Tommy out of Hong Kong, China, wants to know about WeRide, ticker symbol WRD. Sounds like the Chinese Uber, maybe.
It's autonomous driving. Think Waymo.
Ooh.
Uh, but from China. So I gotta say, I'm kind of bummed. I'm all about kind of the new driving tech. I've always been a gearhead. It's one of the reasons why I pursued, a mechanical engineering degree in both my bachelor's and master's. So I've always been a gearhead, and I'm really into, the EVs. I love my Ford Lightning truck. I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm trying to talk my mom. Oh, that's a Freudian slip. Trying to talk my wife into the Ford Mach-E. I'm really into the Ford technology. She's of course looking at something that's 4 times the price, but whatever. Um, I I just heard that Chrysler has decided to abandon its EV truck, and it's going back to producing the Hemi engine. Don't get me wrong, as a gearhead, I love the Hemi engine, but the fact that China can produce EVs at like a 5,000 US dollar cost, and these EVs are like really well made, I feel like we're going back, and we're missing the boat of trying to be competitive in the EV market. And as much as Tesla's been getting a bad name, Tesla's kind of cutting edge, and I'd love to see more focus on the EV market. And I'm with Elon. I wish in this new budget that's coming out that they weren't getting away from the EV subsidy, the EV thing. I think that's one of the um, uh, thorns in Eli's butt is I, Elon's butt is that they're getting giving that's going to be a huge hit to Tesla, above and beyond the fact that there's some bad sentiment towards Tesla because of Elon's involvement. Anyway, I think we're missing the boat here in the States. But now let's talk about WeRide, which you know as an investment, it looks like, if I look at let's look at the last 2 years. This is called, by the way, looking at a stock's fractal patterns. So you go out in time and you look to see if there's repeating patterns. So at one point, they got up as high as around $40, $45. But for the most part, they're back down to where they were. I see what you're seeing, that they're oscillating between about $8 and $10. By the way, I really love that price. So let's look at more recent data. I think you're seeing this bottom here as low as $6.50, and this top here at about $11. Here's the scoop. We're coming off of the top. We got a signal on May 30th, and then it looks like we got our follow through on June 3rd. That's when possibly we should have been shorting some WeRide, and either shorting it or buying a substitute put option. And actually, so we've got a free tool as well that any of you can have access to. You just have to follow the links that SIP put. It's called our options lookup tool, where we can look up historical data. Let me just look up and see what kind of liquidity we have in this options chain, and also the strike price increment. So I'm going to look about 3 to 6 months out. I'm going to look at this October option. I'm seeing we're traded every $2.50, and looking at the money, I mean, the liquidity isn't bad. It's not the best, but there are people trading it. There is a lot of open interest. There is daily volume. So I'd have no problem trading my options on this. And so I guess the scoop that I'm interested in is waiting for it to bottom. Now, if you did short it when we got this signal, then when it hits the bottom, you'd look to be selling put options. That's your premium, and buying protective calls up near your break-even price. That's how you would collar it. If you didn't do that, then let's wait for the next bottom signal. You'd see that in a light blue or cyan, CYAN arrow, and that's when you would instead buy the stock, and then we would sell call premium and buy protective puts and cycle that. So yeah, I could get on this. We're past earnings. I would also like to see that it tests this level of support again at around $6.50. So that would just give me more credibility to the pattern. Yeah, I'm into it. I could see you doing this. Realize that this is a Chinese stock on the US trading market. A lot of Chinese stocks haven't done well. That might be why we're off of our highs. But great price. Everything as far as the mechanics and making sure we check off all of the pieces is there. So, yeah, okay. Uh, Tread lightly, but if you get that bottom signal, I think you could do something.
Yeah, definitely a fast moving, talked about industry. I don't know if you see any of the Waymos over near you, but
Yes.
they're all over the place by me. And
Well, they're on fire by you.
well, that was part of the like gimmick was like, you know, the protesters ordered a Waymo to the protest, and then they just lit it on fire and spray painted it. And it took the Waymo team a while to be like, yeah,
Stop
we're gonna.
sending cars to the protests, to the hotbed.
That's
Yeah.
one of those
I,
probably learning experiences for them.
well, and I don't get me wrong. I understand protest, and but I don't understand Waymo. In my mind, is not the enemy. So why are you doing that unless you're just trying? You're picking fights with the wrong people. But um, if anybody's from protesters are listening to me, maybe leave companies like Waymo alone. Um, but yeah, we here in Washington D.C., Waymo is making a very big pitch, and there's a couple of them out there proving the points that they're safe and stuff to the D.C. government. So I hope to see them around me pretty soon. I used them in Las Vegas and thought they were the coolest thing since sliced bread.
I did like I made a turn like last week or the week before, and there was a Waymo sitting there waiting to pick somebody up, and there was a car, and I was trying to get through, and I started honking, and I was like, well, does the Waymo know that I'm honking at it to move? And
I
then
don't
like
know.
there was a lady crossing the street looking at me honking at the Waymo and just laughing, and I was like, well, that's kind of the world that we live in now. Is like I need to get through, robot. So like,
Yeah.
hey,
I
yep,
got, and again, I'm just such a nerd, but I got an update. They send my truck updates periodically over the air. I'll sit in the truck in the morning, and it'll tell me that it got updated. And this most recent update was an update to its autonomous driving. And now the thing, and I know Ford is behind the curve compared to Waymo or Tesla, but now as I'm letting it drive me, it drives me on the highways. I don't even do anything. I just sit there and look at the road. But now it changes lanes. I mean, that shit's so cool.
and they still advise you to pay attention because
Oh,
that was a big lawsuit
my
recently.
truck has this thing that looks at my eyeballs, and I don't know. It has like these two things. One thing is like infrared, and it lights up my eyeballs, and it can see my eyeballs through sunglasses and any kind of glasses. And then the other thing looks at my eyeballs, and the minute I'm like looking at the radio for more than 3 seconds, it's like la, 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 la. So yeah, that you got to look at the road, but I mean, I'm totally happy with the autonomous driving shit. I can't wait
I mean,
till we're all just driving, letting
my
things
car
drive us around.
doesn't auto drive, but it does give me signals when it feels it veering a little bit, maybe, and that's helpful. But you know, that's the benefits of technology, and so I think the moral of the story here is leave the Waymos alone, guys. They're
Leave the
here.
Waymos alone.
They're trying to make our life easier,
And the
and
other moral is Tommy in Hong Kong, I think WeRide might be a good way of creating a premium trade. I'll look at it closer offline, but it's checked off all the boxes I give my program participants to make sure these things are in place before you go ahead. So it's checking off all the boxes.
all right, let's move on to our second name, a big mover in the overall indexes. Tina from Portland, Oregon wants to know your take on Broadcom, ticker symbol AVGO. I saw this one moving, quite a bit this week. Just
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah. So Tina, I think you've been paying attention. We talked about my swing trading on this. My swing trading has been fantastic. I hope you have been in it as well. Just to recap for folks, if I look at a 6-month chart, I swing traded this thing on the way down, and now I've been swing trading this on the way up. I just got my exit signal with follow through last week. By Friday, I was out. But now, Tina, I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm going to zoom back in. But yeah, I've had 3 very successful, I'm talking about I've either double or tripled my investment swing trades. I had one swing trade that got stopped out at, I believe, a 10% loss. So, take 3 trades where I've made over 200% ROI, 100 to 200% ROI. And then add the 4th trade where I've lost 10%. And that I'm still way ahead of the game. But now I'm all out, and I hope you are too, because we got that signal. Let's zoom in here. And I want to just point out, this is our breakout pattern from last week. This is that consolidation. It's extended a little bit longer than our pennant patterns. Pennant patterns are usually 3 or 4 days. This is coming up on 2 weeks, but this is our textbook consolidation pattern. So what I would be doing would be looking at about this 250, 250. So 250, 250 as kind of the consolidation point. And I would be thinking about 1, 2, or 3 different strategies. I'd be looking at, if it's an option strategy, I'd be looking at a straddle or a strangle. That's where you buy a call and a put at the same time. A straddle is where the call and the put have the same strike price. A strangle is where the strike prices are different. So if you want to play more passively, I'd look at that. If you think that, if you can analyze the implied volatilities, and I know I'm getting nerded out on you, so I'm not going to go too deep. If you know what I'm talking about, you can look at the implied volatility rush if it hasn't happened already. Otherwise, you're going to look at the breakout and try to make a directional gain. The other thing we can do is, if you're into automated trading, and I know some of my viewers love to let the bots trade for them, let your bots trade a breakout. Look for breakouts, which we define as velocity, or my term for that is equity trader momentum, but it's basically price velocity. Look for velocity and smooth price action on, say, a 5-minute chart. And if you catch it, you could do pretty well, especially if you're leveraging an option. So these are all advanced strategies. Sorry, guys, I'm not going to go much into more detail, because these are like, multi-hour-long lessons that my program participants know about. And Tina, I know you're one of my program participants, but I think for now, swing trading is done. I hope you got out and made some good profits. And now we're going to be looking at potential breakouts. It looks like Broadcom is consolidating in preparation for a breakout. And I think Broadcom is on that whole chips and AI path. So I think, again, trade talks with China could be the catalyst. I think Broadcom's chips specifically are some of the chips during these trade talks that China wants access to. So I think that's where we are with Broadcom.
All right. Thank you for Tina. Thank you for that, Tina. Thank you for your support and joining us in the Trading Trainer community. Moving on to our third and final name for today, an airline's name, which, I don't know if you saw the Air India crash yesterday.
A Boeing 787 Dreamliner, the first Boeing 787 Dreamliner went down.
It's just a tough recent time frame for airlines, it seems like. So Carrie out of Tampa, Florida wants to know your take on Southwest Airlines, ticker symbol LUV, which I believe we've covered a handful of times, and this is a name you like to look at.
Oh, absolutely. I like the price, $32.28. I like the pattern. So the pattern's already tested resistance twice. We'll see if we test support. We got so love. I'm wondering if you're a little bit frustrated with love right now because it gave us a top signal with follow through only to stop us out, right? Not here. These wound up, giving us agita and canceling out. But this signal with this follow through would have stopped us out at a little bit of a loss. And now we've got this signal yesterday, and we've got this bar that isn't a follow through bar. And so the question is what the heck are we doing with Southwest? I still, I want you to trade your plan. So the plan is when you get a signal with follow through, you go ahead. So yes, we got a signal with follow through. We got stopped out. If you followed your plan, you got stopped out. You had a little bit of a loss, but I wouldn't give up on love. I would totally again look for the signal, but don't trade until you get follow through. In this case, we're trying to short love. So either you're going to short the stock itself or you're going to buy a far out in time, deep in the money put option as a stock substitute, wait for the follow through, and then just trust in it, right? We get these, sometimes we get these confusing signals, but once it starts going down, that's going to be a positive signal for us. And if you're in the opposite situation, meaning about a month and a half ago, you bought this stock or you bought substitute call options and you sold your calls, you bought your protective puts, and now all of this shenanigans happening again, go back to your trade plan, just follow it. I know that it sometimes, gives you the up and down, but don't try to get aggressive and get ahead of it. You'll never get ahead of it. You'll always be behind it. Just trade your trade plan the way you wrote it down, and be confident in the signals.
Yep, love. That was definitely a great setup. A
It
couple
still
shows
is.
ago,
Don't lose faith.
and it looks like the reversal may be a little bit more elevated due to what we're seeing happening in the space.
That's
I don't know
okay.
if
We
there
can
was.
turn it into profits.
I don't know if you saw the video of the actual plane, but like it didn't even get off the tarmac far. Like it kind of just
Yeah.
like it was a problem right off of the takeoff, which I don't know. I would imagine is a little bit more surprising than
I don't think it's a Boeing problem. I think it was, India and Pakistan are there. I think there's something. I suspect foul play. I know nobody's said that yet, but AJ Brown suspects foul play.
hey, you never know in this day of spies and drones and all sorts of wild new types of warfare.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
watching this show called The Agency, and it's making me
oh,
now,
love it.
question.
Oh, love it.
I'm questioning everybody I meet now.
Yeah, well, and that's taking it to a whole nother level, like changing
Well, Langley
personalities.
is right down the street from where I live, so, I'm always like every time I drive by Langley, my cell phone cuts out,
So
so
that
whatever.
teacher that you work out with, he's really not a teacher. He's a he's
And it's
or whatever the
funny
term was.
because everybody, I'll tell you, in this area where I live, which is Northern Virginia in the DC area, everybody kind of knows everybody because pretty much, well, there's a huge amount of technology coming here. So we've got Amazon, we've got Oracle, we've got Google big time. So you're now finding, but, in my life here, there's been a bunch of, everybody knows, if you work at it's all alphabet soup, all these government agencies. And when somebody says something like, oh, I work here, and then people at the cocktail party are like, I haven't seen you there, then you know that they're actually a spook, right? And then especially if they're shoe rings, like it's a shoe phone. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, you got some technology on you. That's cool.
All right. As we were having the show, it looks like this market is continuing to try and fill this gap
Let's see what the S&P is
as we
doing.
head into the weekend.
Yeah. Even this
Uh,
hour that we've been on the phone, dude, look at it. People have already blown off this whole thing happening abroad, and the market's just coming back up. The whole morning session has been a recovery from the amateur hour sell-off. We'll see what happens in the afternoon. And the most important moment of trading is always between 3 and 4 o'clock, the last hour, 3 and 4 o'clock Eastern time. It's called professional hour. And you see how the real big market movers who have watched the whole day, how they rebalance their portfolio before the end of the day. So I'm interested to see what happens during professional hour. But so far, man, they've blown off all of the overnight news.
Yeah, and heading into the weekend, it'll be interesting. All right, so with that being said, AJ, how are we positioning ourselves for next week? Would you advise maybe stepping away, letting some of these things
No.
work themselves out, or is this a great opportunity to get some premium trades on?
Well, first of all, next week is options expiration for June, which means we should already have our thoughts on the third Friday of July. You're not going to be selling any more premium for June because 5 days isn't worth it. We want to start thinking about the third Friday of July, or if you're into weekly options, you're going to be looking farther out than June 20. So we're number one thinking about, are there any positions where we need to close down the premium early instead of waiting for Friday's expiration, Saturday's settlement? So that's number one thing we're thinking about. So you're going to look through your portfolio at all your premium trades. The other thing I'd say is there's some uncertainties, right, with trade, tariffs, budget. Those three things are the big movers. But then, of course, Truth Social, Twitter. Did Elon give Trump his Twitter account back? I don't know. Did he ever take it
Yeah, but
away?
he still always does it on the truth, and then they just like copy and paste it on. So it's not really the news breaker. It's
Truth
they just
Social
put
is
the,
what you've got to have access to. So if your nerves are at a higher level than usual, there's no reason when you've got your premium trades in place. If you're doing what I do, which is legging into your premium trades, you could always put the collar on early. When the collar's in place, you can rest easy till expiration, right? Because the collar self-adjusts the position if there's a breakout or something crazy happens. So if in doubt, go ahead and put your collar on early. That's my other advice for this week.
awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and give everybody real quick the quick links page so that you can follow along with all the stuff that we've been talking about. We've got our social links. AJ's free indicator. You may have seen the blue and red arrows. That is available there. Some other freebies. We've got the workshop. So this is going to be a 4 strategy breakdown of the different ways to use these premium strategies. We've got a coaching and then the general trading trainer program. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're on the fence, if you're worried about what's going on in the market, there's a lot of great resources and a wonderful community there. That's all I got from our end. From my end, AJ, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on, the current events. But it is like summer. It's like the second week in summer. People are starting to get out. So maybe it looks as if not everyone is as worried as the news is making it seem to be. So we'll continue to keep an eye on the markets and. As always, if you have any questions,
Tariffs,
feel free.
Trade, fiscal policy. Keep your eye on those particular news headlines.
And feel free to show some love. Hit that like, hit that follow, hit that subscribe button.
Tell your friends, dude.
If you have questions, go ahead, throw it in the comments. Send us a direct message. Head on over to tradingtrainer.com. And enjoy the weekend. Have a good enjoy some of the nice weather around the country, and we'll be back with you guys next week. So thank you, AJ, for your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into the AJ Brown Show. If you're interested in learning more about AJ and his investing techniques, head on over to tradingtrainer.com and create your free account today. And if you're not already a subscriber to the show, hit that subscribe button and we'll get you fresh content daily.